All right, let's get started, everyone. I'm having an issue changing the name because it's not showing up in my doc selection to change what the title is. So we're actually talking about WebVR and BabylonJS today. So if I have any of my peeps on this call, if you could change it, that would be cool. If not, the title's just going to be wrong. All right. So let me just, I'm getting an echo because I have it on here. There we go, perfect. All right, so today we are going to be talking about WebVR, WebXR, BabylonJS. You may have played with it before, or you may have played with web development before. I'm going to assume most people know what VR is, but if not, if I start talking about something that doesn't make sense, definitely let me know so I can explain it. Let me pull up my GitHub repo that we're going to be using here so you can see that. Okay, so this is the game we're going to be building out. I don't know if you're familiar with the game Snake, the classic game Snake. It was like a little snake graphic that would go around and eat stuff, and then it would get like longer each time it would eat something. And so I thought that'd kind of be a fun thing to try to create in a 3D space, which is different when you think, because 2D, it seems a lot more simple when it moves around. And actually there's an online version I'll show you in case you are like, I have no idea what Snake is or what she's talking about. Because, I'm old now. So, okay. So if I, will this be available to rewatch later? Yes, it will be. So if I were to go to this 2D version, I hit play, this little square goes around, and if I can get, wow, I'm terrible, there we go. Every time I eat a little square, my snake gets longer, and then another one appears and I have to go find it. So this is the game. And then if you run into the wall, you die. So it's like the basics of the game. But with 3D space, now you can move, X, Y, Z axis. So you can move all around you. And so that enters in some like interesting kind of movements. So we're going to look at how you can use the controller to control the snake. And I've already started building this out. So I'm going to kind of talk through what I've built so far. I'll show you what I've built so far, and then we're going to implement hopefully some new features. And I've actually had a little fun playing with it this morning, so I will show you one of the things that I learned this morning. And I guess I should start with who I am in my background. I forgot that part. So I'm Cassie, and I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. And I mainly actually focus on like AI and actually a lot of different things. But XR is one of my loves and passions. And so what BabylonJS is it's a library that allows us to create 3D experiences in the browser using WebGL. So if you look in this GitHub repo, which I will paste into the chat as well, this is where the source for everything that I've built out so far is. It also gives you some of that interesting or that intro information about what Babylon is and Canon.js, which that's our physics engine. So the cool thing about when you're building, for VR and XR experiences, there's no physics unless you add it. So we want to be able to create some of those interactions. So we need to add a physics engine. And then there's also some basic get started information in here. So I've already cloned the repo, but it's using Node and TypeScript and Webpack. So you would want to download it, install the packages, run the build, and then start the project. So all of that kind of get started stuff is in this repo. Thanks for updating the title. For some reason on my OBS, when I changed profiles, it was only showing me, or it wasn't allowing me to dock or add the chat and the title information like it usually does. Getting an echo. Okay, so there's the link to this GitHub repo. Also, I'm gonna have like VR hair this whole time because when you put on my headset on and off, like it's just gonna be sticking up all over the place and we're just gonna have to deal with that, so. Interesting, I wonder why some people are getting an echo and some aren't. Do you know if you're on mono or 2 channel? I don't know if that would make a difference, but All right, cool. Well, I'm going to keep going. So the other thing I want to show you that I'm going to be using today is something called SideQuest. So SideQuest is this tool that allows you to side load apps into your Oculus Quest. So I'm also using the Oculus Quest headset to do my testing. The cool thing about WebVR is it's a multi-platform, so I can run it on my Oculus Quest. I can run it on any of my headsets just by going to a browser and loading it up. So SideQuest gives me some cool tools, and it's actually a wrapper for something called ADB, which is an Android CLI tool that is used for Oculus development and for Android development. And so I'm going to be using that to set up port forwarding. And so the port forwarding, what that's going to do for me is that I want to be able to debug my website that I'm on my headset with, but I want to be able to get my debug output on my actual screen. And I can't do that without doing a little bit of work. So the cool thing about the Oculus is the Oculus browser has built-in support with Chrome, so I can actually just add this reverse here in my Windows console, and then that allows me to debug and get my output in Chrome right here. Another way that you can do that, and I have a blog post on this as well, is using the Firefox browser. So you can download the Firefox browser if you prefer that over Chrome, and then there's also a way to do remote debugging with that. And the other cool thing with SideQuest is that you can also stream wirelessly. I'm just going to go ahead and use the stream through wired, but you can use this to stream wirelessly as well. You can use a Chromecast to cast it to different devices. So there's a lot of cool ways to be able to share your experience in VR, because one of the really, I think, fun things about VR is not just playing, but also watching other people play can be quite fun, and also sometimes safe, so you don't like accidentally like punch a wall or something, because inevitably happens. At some point you're going to run into a wall or hit something. So it's not just a single game player. It can be fun to do together, which is also something that's cool, like if you've ever done any social VR as well, which then you can be together while you're apart, which during COVID and quarantine and all that kind of stuff, it was a really cool way to be social without being able to be social. So, just checking the chat. Looks good here. Okay, cool. So if I hit stream on this, I'm gonna hit start stream. Actually, I already have it up. But you would hit start and you would hit start stream, and then this would come up. And right now it's black, but let me just show you when I put my headset on and it wakes up. Yep, you can then see what I see. So when I go in and show you the game and different things that we're going to be doing, you should be able to see exactly what I see. So it wants me to create the Guardian, and then I need to move it down here and hit confirm. I'm going to do a stationary boundary just because I'm sitting at my desk. So when I'm doing development, most of the time I do a stationary boundary. It's just easier that way. Okay, so now I'm just kind of in my VR home. This is my Oculus browser. If you've never used one of these, this is kind of your main browsing experience. Make sure you're still seeing everything okay. Cool. Okay, and I'm just going to refresh. So this is my game that I have right now. So this I have localhost running. And I'm just going to show you quick what it looks like now, and then I'm going to tell you how I got to this point. Okay, this feels extra funny, like talking to myself with my headset on, but not. There's some people out there, right? There are. Cool. This makes me nauseous. Oh no. Really? The 2D version makes you nauseous? Or does VR in general make you nauseous? I'm curious, which it is there. All right. So with WebVR, you go to the website and then you hit this little headset with the trigger, and then you're in your game. So I've just created this like box. It's just, you know, walls, and then I have the actual box mesh, which is my snake. And then I have to hit the trigger to start playing. And then I've made it so I can actually control the snake with these buttons here. So like I'm the trigger, or not the trigger. Thumbstick. There we go. That's what I was looking for. And so then when I run into the different spheres, or noms, as I've been calling them, because the snake is hungry, then it gets bigger. So one thing that we want to do is, I don't have any audio on this yet. Like when it runs in, to my sphere object or mesh, my 3D object. I want it to make a noise. And then the other thing is it might be cool to add a noise when you run into the wall and die. Another thing that I've been playing with is the animation. So I really want the snake to actually yes, I know I have crazy VR hair, I'm sorry, but when you move the snake around with the joysticks, I want it to actually bend. If you looked at our 2D version, it's actually moving and animating. And so I was looking into that today, and since my background isn't in game development, I kind of learn as I go. And I learned about skeletons and bones, and I'm going to show you a little bit about that. But basically, with meshes, you have 3D models, and within 3D models, you can have these basic ones and add wrappers of images, which I'll show you. But you can also have ones that are made with 3D modeling software, like Blender is a popular one, or Sketchfab I think is another one. And then from there, you can add these bones into your mesh, and then with your code, you can manipulate them to create the experience that you want. So I'm pretty sure that's what I want to do, and since I haven't gotten into much 3D modeling yet, there are different places I can go to find models as well. Let's see, I'm just going to catch up on the chat here. Is VR worth buying? I've considered getting a rig, just not sure if I want to drop that kind of dough. Okay, so 100% yes. VR is one of those things that I think that people don't realize they need, which sounds funny. But I think about with the iPhone or, and I've talked a little bit, I can show you a little bit. I have a slide that I go into kind of the history of human computer interaction and how it evolves as we evolve, and how things that we didn't used to think was necessary, seemed expensive or extravagant, have become normal and part of our lives, like our phones, for example. So that's one way that I think that VR, it hasn't got there yet, but I think it will start. I think that the Quest, so the Quest is $400, last I checked. I think it still is. And that's a lot of money, but our phones cost way more, and we see those as a necessity, so we spend the money on it. So it's one of those things that or even our gaming stations, if you think about, or our computers, we spend VR headsets are a computer for your face. That's what I think about. It's a new way of interacting with our world digitally. So spatial computing, which is VR and XR, so augmented reality and virtual reality. It's our new way of interacting, just like we interact with voice assistants, even Alexas. That's another good example of something that we used to probably think was expensive and unnecessary and not worth it. And then when we got it and we started using it, it just became normal, part of our daily life of how we interact with our computers. So I think that VR headsets are that, and I think it just hasn't gotten to the point yet where people see them as necessary. Although I do understand, I'm not negating that $400 is not a lot of money, because it is a lot of money. But yeah, I think that also with tech too, as it improves and as advancements made, the price tends to come down. I also have an Oculus Go, which I don't know if they're still making those, because that was before the Quest. Those were a little bit cheaper. I think those were $200, which were a really good way to just kind of try it out and see if you're into it. And then if you are, I would definitely recommend getting something more like Oculus Quest or Windows Mixed Reality. I don't know how many people know that actually Microsoft makes a VR headset as well. So the mixed reality headsets, you can get, I think HP just came out with a new version, if I'm remembering right. And that one's really cool. And that one you can play with a gaming PC. So the cool thing about the Quest is I don't need to have a separate PC. This is a contained device. I can unplug it and I can play all kinds of games. With a lot of the other ones like the HTC Vive or the Windows Mixed Reality headset, some of them you need external sensors. There's also another version of the Quest, and then you need a gaming PC as well. And then the gaming PC kind of does the brunt of the load of the games, and you download games using things like Steam. So there's a lot of options out there. I definitely recommend doing research and looking around. Okay, let me try to get some of these other questions. I had one coworker that bought one and played it for 2 weeks and then kind of left it and forgot about it. So, yeah, I just saw the next one said this is a weird version of Snake. I do the same thing. I'm not playing VR every day, but I also don't play, Xbox or my Switch every day either. So it is definitely one of those, like, it's a game. Right now it's a gaming thing. It's not necessarily a necessity. Although there's a lot of functional aspects of the way that VR is being applied to training, and there's things that it's actually being used up for a lot outside of gaming. But I think as a, like, just a user that you would buy, like a personal user, you would just like go buy it and use it at home, and it'd be more of like that gaming thing. It is also fun for parties, but also like social VR. We did an entire conference in something called AltSpace VR, which is a social VR platform where you can go and like hang out. So like if you think about old chat rooms, it's kind of what I think of, but like in virtual space. Then that's kind of what it's like, which was really cool. So then they had happy hours at Mixed Reality Dev Days, and you were able to like chat with people like you were at like a party or a happy hour. So it was cool. Okay, let me get through some of these, more of these questions. Also, this is the weird version of Snake. I know, it is kind of weird because I was trying to think about like how is the best way to translate the 2D into the 3D game. So if you have other ideas of like what you think would make it better, I think that'd be cool. I used to have the background be a snake, or I mean not be a snake, be dirt. But then I was like, I feel like space snakes just like sounds cooler than like dirt snakes. I don't know, or traditional snakes. And then I'm thinking when I do actually 3D model the snake, I think I'm gonna make it like a robot snake. So it'll be like robot snakes in space, which is weird, but I still think cool. Okay, let me see what else I got in these here. Bet it's cool to pretend to walk on the moon with some kind of haptic system. That would be really cool. Can you stream in 1080? I am streaming in 1080. Is it really hard to see? I'm curious if anybody else is having a hard time seeing. Oh, I see that. Thank you, Brian, or Clarkio. I think that before you buy a headset, you should check if there's enough content that you would like, games, VR communities, etc. Oh, it says source is 720. Huh, okay. Yeah, that is a good point. There are a lot of really cool games. If we have extra time, I can show you. I can stream a couple through SideQuest if you want to see a couple of my favorite games. But like the one that I always tell people to try out first is like Beat Saber. Beat Saber is really, really fun. And it essentially gets like you get like your arms are lightsabers, and you have like there's like music playing, and you have like these different shapes coming at you, and you have to like hit them, and then there's like music playing. So it's really fun. It's kind of like Dance Dance Revolution in like 3D with lightsabers, I guess you can kind of think of it. That's a really fun one. Another cool one that I really like is Super Hot, which I guess I could just pull up videos of this too. But let's get into some of the game, because I literally could go on and on about all the different aspects about VR that I love. But I want to show you some of the code that we're doing here too. So I'm happy to keep answering questions about VR, and I'm happy to do some demos of different games, although they're kind of hard to do sitting down. So, okay, let's go back to my code here now. So like I said, this is all done in, I hope you can see that okay. If I need to zoom a little, I can. So this is all done in TypeScript. I'm using TypeScript. And if you're not familiar with TypeScript, but you're familiar with JavaScript, TypeScript is just the option to add static typing to JavaScript. And then it transpiles back into a bundle.js, which you can use in your to deploy your site. And we're using Webpack, and I'll go into a little bit of that, but actually I forgot I wanted to show you the playground. So BabylonJS, when you're starting out and when you're trying to figure out how to do different things, I spent a lot of time in the playground. Let's load up here. Okay, so in the playground, this is kind of like the base scene that comes up, and it's cool because it shows you some of the basics that gets you started with this library. So you can see that you need to have a camera. So when you start with building VR experiences, the camera is the point of view of the user. So you need to have camera. The other thing that's interesting is, if you don't add light, there is no light. So like if I wanted to delete out the light and hit play, you could see that now it's dark and I don't have any of those, the contours of the shapes or of the meshes. So that's the other thing you can just do. You can change it on the one side, play it over here. You don't have to be concerned about, breaking anything, because you're just kind of figuring it out, right? And then they have all these built-in meshes. So you don't have to like I said, I've been able to do a lot of stuff just using the built-in meshes and then wrapping them with an image. So like my box that you saw in that little demo that I did, that is wrapped with an image to give it that feature. It's literally just one of these, like instead of create box, it's create sphere, or I'm sorry, instead of create sphere, it's create box, and then I wrap it with an image. But then you can also start getting into like importing custom models, which I think I'm gonna have to finally do now, which is cool though. Got a tickle in my throat. Okay, there we go. All right, and then here we have the create ground. So this is creating my ground mesh. So this is the basics of a scene. You can download it right from here and run it locally. And if you click over here, there's actually all these different examples that you can look at. So for example, I was talking about the bones animation. So if I go over here, you can see that they're importing the mesh, and you can see that they have a skeleton, and then they're able to manipulate and move this 3D mesh with the skeleton. So that's a good example of that, like I was talking about. Let's see what else. They have ways you can morph the target. So the other thing that I was thinking about when I was trying to think about, okay, how do I make the snake like move the way that I want? Like, since it's just now this like box that moves like, actually no, it doesn't even rotate right now. It just moves like in this like single plane. What are the different ways I could make it move? And another way is that morphing. So you can actually take just one of the built-in objects and you can morph it through different, through their library as well, which this is frozen. It's not, there we go. Oh, it came in, okay. So if you take a look here, you can see that this is a sphere that just has different morphs added to the target, and that's all built in to Babylon. What else is in here? So you have like buttons you can add. Another thing, so if you've ever done any Unity development, you're probably used to having this. Oh, and with you can do this in Blender when you're moving things around as well. So like if you want to be able to move a mesh around. I don't know why this is taking so long to load. Let me check my resources. It's frozen again. There we go. I don't know, I'm looking good. I think it's just taking a minute to load. So anyways, that is the playground. It's a good place to go when you're starting. There's also like a forum and a place where you can go save your own examples. Where it is. All right, I'm gonna close this though because it keeps like totally freezing. Okay. So that's the Babylon playground. Like I said, there's also like a library and a forum where people can have different questions, and then you can go in and you can post how they did it, and then you can easily share it with the community of people. So now let's take a little bit of a look at what I've got going on in the snake game that we saw. So the HTML markup for this is really simple. Like I'm really just creating a canvas element and importing my script. And with a little basic CSS, like that's it. And that's a template that I just copied and pasted from their site. Like I don't need to do anything else with it. But where I start creating things and start moving things is in my JavaScript. So if I scroll down here, you can see that I'm creating my canvas element. I'm getting that item. And then the other thing you can see is like, so this colon and then the type, this is adding the type in TypeScript. So that is a TypeScript feature that's adding it, that gives me this IntelliSense. And so since I come from actually a C# background, was like the first thing I started doing was like full stack development with C#. And so I was really used to static typing, and I really liked the IntelliSense and all the tooling that I got in Visual Studio once I started doing JavaScript. having TypeScript just made it a lot better. Seems similar to Unity, says John, with what little I've played with it. Yeah, so Unity, it is kind of, but Unity is you're using C#. You can do WebGL with Unity, which I have not tried. I actually just learned this recently, that you can build it in Unity and export it to WebGL to JavaScript and then run it that way. So I actually haven't tried doing that yet, but you could use Unity for WebGL. You can also use Unity for client applications. So like if you're going to build something for Windows Mixed Reality or the HoloLens. So I actually have a HoloLens back here. So if you're going to do Unity development, this is the first generation. I'm not cool enough to have the second generation. The second generation is amazing. But yeah, so you can do C# with Unity, and then you just do like little scripts, and then you add it to your objects, and that's how you kind of create your interactions. And then you output that to an app. So that's a really common way to build these. There's also Unreal. So the Unreal Engine is another gaming engine that you can use to build. And that one has a material editor that allows you to like visually create your stuff like with really little to no code. I haven't used Unreal before, so I can't explain it well. But you can also use C++ in that. So this isn't by any means the only way to create VR experiences. This is just one way to create VR experiences, and using WebGL and Babylon. Yes, I can increase the font a little bigger. Maybe. Why is that not scrolling? See if I can get it this way. My control zoom in. Well, control equals is what it says it is. Usually it's control scroll. Let's see. That's not working either. Oh, there it is. It was just delayed. Oh goodness. My happy clicking. There we go. Now it's very large. I hope that is good. If it needs larger, let me know. Let's see. There's also some open source add-ons with WebXR and Unity. Oh, cool. Didn't know that. Like I said, I have not used Unity for WebXR, so that's cool. Thank you, DPanther. Let's see, how would this stuff apply to the database building? I'm looking for new ways to integrate web-based data mining into a custom database. It's kind of a newbie testing the waters. Let's see what coding linkages are out there. So are you meaning like JavaScript with a database, or do you mean like just adding a data source? I mean, it's JavaScript, so you could use, you know, you could do an API call and then have that like through a function, like a microservices thing. I'm not really exactly sure if I understand what you would be using a database for. Oh, you're not sure. Okay. Yeah, so databases, that would be like if you wanted to have a backend data source for your game, which, I mean, that could happen if you wanted to have like a leaderboard. We have something called PlayFab, which is like an SDK that makes it really, really easy to add leaderboards and different gaming aspects right to your game without having to necessarily worry about the database side. So it kind of like gives you a SDK and a front end, so you don't have to do the database modeling. But yeah, I guess I haven't really, like, most of the games that I've done have been like kind of simple like this, where it's just like a one scene thing and you kind of just play around and I just play around and see what I can build out. So I'm not sure. Still have a lot to learn. We all do. There's always more to learn. There's never like in tech, like there's never, you can never know everything. And there's always more to learn. So it's good. It's fun. Keeps it interesting. Okay. Back to my code here. All right. So I'm creating my canvas element. I'm creating my engine, my scene, and then, I'm creating my camera, my snake mesh. So that's the snake that we saw, the square. And then I'm also creating an XR helper. And so I'm just creating these variables. and then I'm going to actually create the scene. So in here, if you go down here, you can see I'm actually setting my camera, and I'm setting the view of my camera. So this is a vector 3, so it's X, Y, Z. So that's where my positioned free camera is when it loads. And then I can also set the target, which I reset it here. Probably don't need that. Okay, and then I'm going to attach my camera to my canvas, and then I'm adding my light, as we saw in that other example. And then here I'm creating the XR helper. So the XR helper does a lot for you. So it gives you all these like kind of experiences that you want to add without having to add it yourself. So for example, like you can see there's teleportation. Actually, I think I can just go XR helper. And you can see, oh, come on, IntelliSense. And usually it would tell me what's available, but maybe it's just taking a minute. Seems like everything's taking a minute. Well, we could also go to the documentation. But essentially, the XR helper gives you all these different functionalities that you can use. So the other thing that you can do, since this is TypeScript and I have this awesome helper stuff, I can click and go to the docs. But I actually found out today, I think this link is broken. So this is not a good one. Most of them aren't. But I think this one got moved. Yeah, page not found. So normally you could do that and it would bring you right to the docs, and you could see all the different XR experiences that are added for you. That particular one seems to be broken. I should probably tell them that. Okay, so then teleportation is, so like if I want to be able to use my joysticks to actually like move around my environment. So you saw how like when I went into the VR experience, I was in one spot, and when I was moving my joysticks, it was actually moving my snake. If I didn't detach the teleportation, that would have, well, actually it depends on the game. Some of them are you teleport with the joystick, and usually, or the thumbstick is I think what it's called for these controllers, but usually that is by default if you're using the XR experience. But since I want to control my snake with these, I'm going to detach that. It also, on some games, it does that and it moves your head, and then other ones you can use the buttons to teleport. So I forget sometimes which one is the default for which, because you can detach it from the default experience and create it however you want to create that interaction. So, but yeah, on this one I was noticing that my head was moving when I was trying to just control the snake. Okay, so then pointer selection, that was another one that I wanted to remove, which is the pointer of where this is pointing, essentially. Nothing in the chat. Okay, just checking in and seeing if there's anything there. Okay, so I have my default experiences set up with my XR helper. I'm adding my physics engine, so I'm adding this in, and I'm enabling physics on my scene. And then the next thing here, I'm creating my snake. So I've separated out some of my logic into different classes. I can just hit F12, and it's going to bring me to my snake TS file. And here we can see how I'm actually creating that snake mesh that we're moving around. And I think I forgot to mention this is the VS Code editor, but if you were wondering what editor I'm using VS Code. Okay, so I'm going to pass in my scene, and I'm going to create a material. So like I was telling you, I can use these built-in meshes without having to do any 3D modeling. And so I just have a box. So I have meshbuilder.createBox. And then I'm creating this texture from an image, and then I'm wrapping that on my object by setting the material to that image. So that's how I'm able, otherwise it would just be that plain gray color that we saw when we looked at the scene in Babylon. So that's how I'm able to do that. And then I'm going to add a physics imposter. So I want to have some physics created, and I want those to exist on my snake. So without it, there would be none. It would not have mass or anything. And then I'm doing some animation properties. These are actually actually all of this right here isn't working right now. So this is what I was working on when I was telling you that I was like trying to see if I could cheat like without actually creating my 3D model. If I could just add like a skeleton and bones into my box and then like move it that way, it doesn't work. So just so you know, I was messing with that earlier today. But I could bring in a skeleton and attach that to my box. So I could have one that was pre-made, I think, in Blender from what I was reading, and then use that. And if that's like kind of confusing you, let me show you this cool example that I found for skeleton. So this is in oh no, it's like having browser issues. Come on. Well, maybe I'll go to a different site. I don't know why the playground is like being super laggy for me. Oh, it's gonna crash. No. Okay, I'm just gonna close it. This is usually not like that. I'm wondering if it's just because I have so much open. I don't want to close. Well, fine. Okay, I'm gonna have to close that. Okay, let me go back in and show you what I'm talking about with some of these skeletons. See if we restore and see if it can handle it now. Oh, that was not what I wanted to restore. Oh well. Oh, here's the man. This is it. This was the thing. Is it gonna load now? Yay, there we go. Okay. Cool. Let me, oh, now my Twitch stream for the chat is gone. Okay. So these are the bones that I was talking about. So like this is the 3D mesh, and these are the bones within the 3D mesh that was created. And so they're able to load in this mesh through the scene loader.import mesh. And over here, there is, it's not letting me scroll, but there we go. We can see that it's importing the skeleton and the meshes, and then using this debug feature, we're able to actually make them show. So you could take out this debug feature and then the skeleton wouldn't show, but that's how the animations are created. So one thing before I got into development, I was always kind of curious how those different, the 3D modeling and like the meshes and how they like create all that together. So it's interesting how like art and programming come together when it comes to like games and VR in general, because there's like a lot of different disciplines that come into creating a game. So like the art that's involved with creating a 3D model, and then, you know, bringing those in and then functionally applying the code to create, you know, this dude walking. So it's a cool thing about VR development. One of my favorite hackathons I ever went to was a VR development one, MIT Reality Hack. And it was so neat because you had people that were artists, and then there's also 3D capture. So sometimes to create these animations, rather than manually creating them, they're able to actually like capture the animation and then put that into a 3D experience. We have a cool product called the Azure Connect DK, which allows you to do 3D capture of yourself through an SDK with C#, and then you can put that into an experience as well. So there's just so many cool things you can do with VR development. Okay, so that was a little bit of a tangent, but that's what the skeletons are, and that's what I think I'm going to need to do in order to make my snake move correctly. All right, so control minus will bring me back to my create snake function, and then back again. Okay, cool. So now we're back in our index.ts, and what did it say I changed? I don't think I changed anything. Anyways, and then I'm going to set up the environment. So there is a default environment that you can use as part of Babylon. There were some default experiences that weren't working right for me. So I went super manual and like created a box with different planes. I might go back and actually try to use the default experience, because the default environment that's built into BabylonJS, maybe I can just pull up the docs here to show you. It gives you a lot of stuff for free, just like the XR helper that you don't have to build out. So let's see the BabylonJS default environment. So let's go in here. I can show you. like it has a camera and it has, so yeah, it creates like a default camera, default light. So a lot of those things that we had to add in and think about, those things are just part of the default environment. So the cool thing about that too is like maybe you just have a mesh, like maybe you're more of a 3D modeler and you have a mesh that you just want to throw into an environment. You can use something like the default environment and you could then, you know, change some minor things about it, add your mesh and put in your animation, put it up on a website and you could share it with the world. So I mean, there's like a lot of cool things that you can do quickly and simply if you're going to use some of these default helpers. So Skybox makes it look like sky, so you can have some of those kind of graphics for you. Ground mirror is pretty cool. Let's see. So yeah, anyways, you can go in here and look. I'll paste this into the, oh wait, did my chat come back up? Okay, good, it did. I'll paste this into the chat so you can take a look at this as well. Seen the YouTube channel Art of Code. It's pretty neat. I have not seen the Art of Code. I don't know what that is. I'm going to look at that. Thank you. Art really is creative though. I mean, art. Coding really is creative. A lot of people, I feel like that from the outside maybe think of it as systematic, which it is systematic too, but it is creative systematic. What is the name of that tool? Agile? No, it's the Azure Connect DK. Let me show you Azure. I actually am using it now as like a way overpowered webcam. So, but I'm like, it's there. I might as well use it. But you can do so many cool things with the Azure Connect DK. I'll put this in to the chat as well. Like, so in the first version of this, somebody created a Theremin, which if you're not familiar what it is, it like basically you like move like your hand and it creates sound. And I'm not going to explain it really well, but through like electrical signals, like there's like these like antenna, and then you can change the pitch just by moving your hand, not touching anything. It's crazy. But somebody used an Azure Connect to actually create that same kind of idea and usability or instrument, really. It's a musical instrument. So like that's just an example of like one way that you can use the Connect DA to create different like spatial and experiences. So you can reference this recording later. It'll be on the Twitch channel. Just answering one of those questions there. And all the source code is in my GitHub too, so you can download it and play with it and change it. If you want to fix some stuff for me, you're welcome to. Still lots to do in this one. Okay, so let's go back to the creating the environment box that we have. So set up environment, I'm doing a few different things. I'm creating the environment box, like I was saying, I created those planes, which I'll show you. I'm adding some labels to the scene. So that was like the press the trigger to start button and then like the game over. And then also I'm registering the controllers. So to actually create all those events with the controllers in the mesh, I'm actually creating that by using the XR helper, which gives me ways to interact with my controllers. So first I will jump into my create box environment. And here, so I'm adding this ground material. So like I said, I just changed this actually to that space image. Before it was like this dirt image, and I'm just like, space snakes are cooler than like normal snakes that live on the ground. So I think that that's why I changed that there. And then I'm able to use this ground material now on all the different planes that I create by wrapping it just with an image. So I'm going to create the plane. I'm going to give it a height and width. And then I'm setting the XYZ position in the world, adding the material. And then I actually had to add a little bit of rotation to get it correct. That sometimes just getting things placed correctly in your 3D world is sometimes where I spend the most time. And so that's the other thing that's nice about the default environment is you don't have to try to like place each individual mesh. And the other thing about like that's cool about Unity is Unity has like an editor on the side that allows you to play with the meshes in a little bit more of a visual way. I think Babylon has something similar, but I haven't used it. It's like outside of this default experience. So like if I'm just using my normal like VS Code in Babylon, I'm generally like putting things where I think they should go, and then I'm running it and then checking it in my headset to see if they look the way that I want them to look. Okay, so I'm adding that physics imposter to the plane, and I'm creating the ground, and then I'm adding the snake interaction. So if you saw when the snake ran in to the wall, that is an interaction that we created, and it kind of like created those like particles that looked like an explosion. So if I jump into that, we can see what happens here. So I'm passing in my snake mesh, my scene, and my plane mesh, so that what's going to actually interact with the snake. And what happens is I have a trigger action, and it's on the intersection enter. So as soon as my snake mesh intersects with my plane mesh, I want this function to trigger. So that's how I'm able to create those events. And so then I'm adding the particles to the mesh. So when we saw the explosion, it's using a particle system. I'm adding those two, which is part of this here, which I'm not going to go into the particles, but there's a lot on documentation if you want to look more into that. But it's adding those particles to the mesh, and then it's removing it, and then I'm doing thread.sleep, and then removing the particles, and then ending the game, because if the snake runs into the wall, the game is over, right? Let's see, at MIT Reality Hacks, did the Azure Connect DK demo use one device or multiple devices to capture user movements in 3D? It uses one. Let me, in a minute, I'm gonna see, or after this, let me see if I can find the good document. There's a really good demo and documentation on how it's able to track the person. From what I remember, it's not very good at like tracking the hands, but it's really, really good at using the body, or that like tracking the body. And it's doing that through AI. So they have trained a model that, I think it took 2 weeks to train this machine learning model that's actually used to create the person and track and then render it. It's really, really cool. There was a good talk on it at Mixed Reality Dev Days, which is a conference that Microsoft has for our mixed reality devices. So a lot of HoloLens stuff, but also the Kinect and the mixed reality VR headsets as well. And it might be online too, honestly, if you want to look into that. So they did a really cool demo about how to actually use it to do that. Okay, so if you dig around in the docs, I'm thinking you'll find that demo, because that's kind of like one of the standard demos. Did I miss anything over here? I think I got everything. Okay, so I've created my action, and then the other thing, let's see if my IntelliSense wants to work now. Oops, wrong one. There we go, now it worked. So you can look through here and you can see some of the different events that you have available. So on every frame trigger, on key down, on key up, key left press. So there's the other thing is some people create browser experiences where you don't need a headset, and you can actually just use like your arrow keys to move things around as well and create a game that way, versus, so you have like the 3D aspect, but you're viewing it in 2D. So you don't actually have the headset to play it. So those are just some of the other things that are available in your action manager. So you're adding your action manager to your plane and then creating that interaction. Okay. I won't really go into this one. This is just quite boring. I just created a little helper function to like create each wall. So I'm just saying like my northeast southwest wall and saying where it is on the XYZ axis, and then or position, and then adding the interaction to each wall. That's it. That's all that's going on there. Okay. What should I press on the browser when asked press right trigger to play game? So this is not, so they're asking how you would play this in the browser. I don't have it set up to work in the browser. Right now, like it's only a VR experience. There's still so much I want to build out on it. So adding browser interactions isn't super like high up on my list. Like right now, I really want to get the animations working, add sound, and yeah, and then some custom meshes. So like right now I just have that sphere, but I thought it'd be fun to like have different mesh objects, or by mesh I mean the 3D objects loaded versus just like a sphere, or maybe have Now that it's like in space, maybe they should be like planets. Like I should just add different colors to wrap around the sphere. I don't know. So I'm definitely a ways out before making it like a browser interaction. All right. Whoa, time is going fast. It's already 11:50. Okay. Let's look at the register controllers. So here, you can see I'm using my XR helper. So I'm passing in the XR helper that we created originally, and then I am getting my onController added. So this is how I'm able to access my controller. And I'm logging out my different component IDs because I was trying to figure out which ones were available and how to access different attributes. So like when I want to get the component, I needed to know what the ID was. And so we have our trigger component, our thumb component, and actually, well, I can show you this quick. So you can see how it looks and like what those objects look like. I will quickly go into my game again and have them print out so you can see it. Sorry if you can hear my dog barking. She's very zealous. So once it goes to sleep, I have to reset my boundary. All right, switch to stationary, confirm. Okay. Just gonna refresh quick. Go in. Actually, probably it's kind of cool to see this again now that you've seen some of the like now you can see how I've set up the box. You can see that it's wrapped with that image. You can see the object. I can press the trigger and then I can move it around and then interact with. The other thing it's really kind of hard to control sometimes. Like when I go down, no, it's not going down. So I still think I have some interactions to make better there. But so now that I did all that, you can see that because I have set up my port forwarding and with my Chrome and my Oculus browser, I'm able to see all of this output here. So all that console.log from the controllers, I can see right here. So I can see the XY coordinates from when I hit each the thumbstick different ways. And I was doing that because the way that I'm actually, well, I'll show you in a second, of how I'm controlling it depends on the XY coordinates. For each right and left controller is how I'm deciding which way the snake should go. But let me move up. Oops, you can see my failed attempt. This is actually kind of embarrassing. Like, look at how terrible I am at my own game. Oh, let's see, come on. Because when it initially loads the controllers, that's when it shows the output. Okay. Actually, that's not it either. Up, up, up. Here we go. So here's where I'm pointing out or printing out the different IDs for the controller. So you can see we have the trigger. This is the squeeze, so the internal button right here, which everybody that's new to VR always forgets this one exists. Important and super hot, this one is, because you can't, like, you have to like punch people or like these like objects that I guess they're people. They're like these weird like red glass people. And your punches have no weight if you don't actually grip the squeeze button there. And then you have the thumbstick, and then you have your A and B button, and then this is your thumb rest. So I'm able to actually access all of these just through, I'll show you, this motion controller get component ID. And then from the motion controller, I can see which hand I am, which is called handness. It's very handnessy. And then you can get the component by sending in the ID. And so that's why this was here, is because I was like, okay, how do I actually access the different things? The cool thing about the XR helper too is that it supports a lot of different controllers. Like, it's not just for the Oculus controller. So you could use this for other motion controllers and then see what the different components are. And I don't know if they're the same because I haven't actually tried debugging this on my my Windows Mixed Reality headset. Since I got the Quest, I use my Windows Mixed Reality a lot less, except for if I'm playing like Half-Life Alyx, which is really cool. And if you haven't heard of it, or you should look it up, because it's like probably one of the coolest VR games that I've played at home. there's also places you can go play, like Void VR has like a place where you can go and you get like the full haptic feedback where you actually like push a button and the button is like literally there. That was probably the coolest not at home VR experience. Did I miss anything in here? Let's see. Yeah, Chrome's remote devicings is a pretty handy tool. Yes, so that's exactly how I'm doing that as well. I think I may have forgot to show that part, but to get to the remote device and inspect, let me show this quick. So this is how I'm able to get to my remote devices on here, and I can see that I have my Quest. So like this is the same like with Android. I believe you could, I don't do Android development, but I believe that you can use this same stuff for like Android development. And then you can hit inspect, and then that's what allows me to actually remote debug on my browser, which is super important because like otherwise you can't see what's happening, right? Like how do I see my output and see if I have an error, if something's broken? I can also set breakpoints here as well. So like I can set a breakpoint and I can go in my headset and trigger it, and then I can really dive in and see what I need. So that's actually how I found that the new way to access the hand was the handness, because I could not find that in documentation anywhere. Okay, so that's how I am interacting with my controllers through the XR helper. And then let's see what I got here. So now I'm doing my on button state change. So I'm sending in the trigger component. So this is the trigger component. So now that I was able to get that component from my motion controller, I can now trigger an event. And I don't know why I'm logging the component there. Oh, that's right, because I wanted to look at what attributes I had available on it. That's why I was doing that. So then I'm getting the game status, because one thing that will happen, so to press the right trigger to start the game, I'm going to go a little bit over. I'm not sure we're going to get to implementing the sound like I wanted to, unless we want to go really over, but I'll just finish out this piece, and then if we want to go a little over, we can, and I can show some of the sound stuff. But the, where was I? Oh, yeah, okay. So on the trigger event, I wanted to know which hand was pressed, and if it was the right one and the game is not active, then I would start the game. And by starting the game, I'm calling this, it's going to create my snake, and just set some like basic game start attributes, right? Or like properties. And then I'm going to create the animation. So this is going to start the animation so my snake starts to move. And then I have it as a constant. And then this is which way it's going, X, Y, or Z. So like right now when it starts, it just goes straight up. That's, I'm thinking that I might want to change that to X instead of Y and have it go to the right. But nonetheless, that's how we are creating that animation. Let's see, am I missing anything in this chat here? Is this open source? Is what open source? Are you talking about the BabylonJS? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Firefox had a similar tool. Oh yeah, it does. So Firefox has remote debugging as well, and I actually have a blog post on how to use that one. If you prefer to use Firefox, it's a little bit more setup, but still good. Let me grab that quick, and I'll paste that in the chat. Where did it go? That's free 3D models. Okay, well I can't find my own blog post. That's no good. Well, I'll have to come back to it. Either way, I'll just post where my blogs are. Uh-oh, is Chrome is unhappy again. Or not Chrome, Edge. So there is where my blogs are. So long. Oh yeah, it is noon. Okay, let's see what else do I have in the chat here. Would anybody play a game where the protagonist was a dog? That's a funny question. Okay. Yes, thank you for coming. Hope you learned some. And if anybody builds stuff, send it to me. I want to see. My Twitter is Cassie Breviu too. So feel free to tag me or mention if you do anything. I'd love to see it. Okay. Is the Git repository up to date? You know, I'm gonna have to get back to you. I would assume it is. I know there was a lot of like WebXR changes really recently because before the AR piece was really unstable and wasn't really working. And then that was from like a W3 standards point, not Babylon. So we were waiting for the standards, is from my understanding. And then now that's what created some of the changes. And also why there's a couple branches. The main branch in the browser or in my repo right now is using the WebVR helper because that was the predecessor to the WebXR helper. And so I've been working in the WebXR branch, which I just need to merge those in now because I've gotten it working enough to merge it. Okay, let's see. If there was a Hall of Fame for hearts, yours would be the biggest one. Okay. Yeah, we are at time. I'll just show you the other, how we're doing the snake movement. And then maybe, I'm also on Twitch at Cassie Breviu. And so when I go in here and I have time to play around, if you want to see more BabylonJS stuff, let me just throw that in the chat. I think I spelled everything right there, but I do a lot of this, like this is kind of my fun project that when I have time to work on it, I do. And so a lot of my streams are like this, are doing like this kind of stuff. Sometimes it's AI, but a lot of times that's like my personal time coding channel. Okay, so anyways, so then let's look at the thumbstick component so you can see how I'm actually able to move the snake around. So I'm grabbing that component. I am adding the value changed observable, and then I'm sending in the stick values. So you saw all those outputs of which side was, whether it was the right or the left, and then the X and Y coordinates. That's what's happening here. And then here I was working through like, okay, so if it's greater than 0, then it should move up. And so then in here, this is where I was playing with again, like this does not work right now. This is the skeleton bone. So like I'm able to add the skeleton to it because if you look at the log, you can see that they're there, but I'm not able to actually move them, which means I'm probably doing it wrong. Let's see. Yeah, so like you can see that I was able to add the skeleton bones. And even like the animations, like Snake Bones 1, even like the position and the animation that I was messing with, like if you look in here, it actually is the position. Which one did I have? I've been playing with different ones. Set axis angle, so the rotation. Like the rotation, I think is technically, it's like displayed like it's working, but it's not actually working. And I'm pretty sure that's because I'm doing it wrong. It's usually what happens. Is it a bigger hurdle to go from JavaScript to TypeScript or to go from TypeScript to C#? So from JavaScript to TypeScript or TypeScript to C#. I would say JavaScript to TypeScript, if you're used to dynamically typed languages, is going to be harder because like JavaScript without, like, it'll just let you do whatever. Things will be like all broken, but you get no IntelliSense, nothing telling you that you're like wrong or that property doesn't exist, which sometimes is useful because sometimes it does exist and it's not. Like for example, that handness, I think there's something wrong with the types file for that particular one because it's not showing up. And then with C#, so like I'm obviously biased because C# was my first language and I love C#. And like I didn't really like JavaScript until I could use TypeScript because I like the static typing and I like the IntelliSense and I like that development experience. So I would say TypeScript to C# is going to be an easier move because there's so many, like, and actually one of the creators that created TypeScript is also one of the creators of the C# language. So there's like a lot of like similarities between the two and how you do things. And so like for me, when I was doing full stack C# development, like TypeScript made JavaScript more fun to use because it was a lot easier from going from back end to front end because you're always doing that when you're doing full stack development. So yeah, I definitely think C# to or TypeScript to C# would be easier than JavaScript to TypeScript. But that also just depends on your background too. Like, when did you come in? What have you learned before? I think some people that have a hard time moving to C# and TypeScript is because they're not used to statically typed languages. And so it's a new experience, right? You're learning a different way to do something and a new coding thing. So it really depends on the person. But I would say if you'd only done JavaScript, then moving to TypeScript is going to be a bit of a learning curve, but I think it's a good one nonetheless. That makes sense. Okay, good. Var is infer that you are creating a variable. Okay. Let's get back to the code here. So yeah, and I mean, this is really just all the same. Like, so now because I have the right controller only doing up and down movement. So for if the hand is right, I'm only then handling the up and down movement. And then, or if it's value equals this, then it's down. And then if you go down here now, for the left hand movement, I'm handling right, left, and forward and backward. And that's where I'm running into some issues, because I think that because it's always like a decimal for the X and Y values, like there's somewhere I think it's kind of getting confused in that. The other thing is I feel like I should switch, like I honestly just don't like these nested if else. Like I feel like I want to switch to an enum, and I'm probably going to change how this does eventually. But sometimes when I'm just trying to make things like work and figure it out, I just kind of move through doing it at that point, and then I go back and like refactor. So that's where it's at right now. It does work. It works pretty fine, but I think it could work better. Struggling with Python, miss C# as my primary language on a daily basis. Oh man, yeah, I have a lot to say on that, but we're running out of time, so I can't. Okay. Yeah, so that's the basics of the controllers interaction. So if you think about how we're moving the snake around, how we're able to trigger those events to create the animation to move the mesh object around, that is how everything is working. I think that's all of the pieces of the game. Like I think we went through, yeah, like everything of where it's at right now. So that was like a full walkthrough of how I got to the point that I'm at now. I really wanted to do some sound stuff. So like I created this like really awful like nom nom noise like before this. Like I'm gonna play it quick. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it very well. No, you can't hear that. Anyways, that is, it's actually really easy to add sound. It's not really any different in VR unless you start playing with spatial sound. But you can just add the sound and then sound.play in the noms. So if we go to here, like I've already added the sound library. So if you're not familiar, this is how we import the packages that we want to use within the BabylonJS library. And then let's see. I'm going to, since we're running out of time, I'm just going to copy and paste some stuff in. So I have a sound file that I've added into my assets or as a new, sorry, not part of my assets. I added it as a separate folder. It plays the sound, and then all I have to do then to play this sound is add in to my intersection. So when my snake nom, so basically that sphere, when the snake intersects with it, I also have this action that happens, and then what I want it to do is play the sound, like the eating sound that I created, and then that's all I would have to do to add some sound to this. The other thing that I need to add to is just like overall ambient sound to the game as well, so I want to kind of create some music for that. But yeah, so that's all you have to do. There's like, I could just keep going, so I'm just gonna stop there because, you know, we all have things to do, right? Any other questions? Copy and pasting, yes, because ran out of time. Is there any other questions or stuff? Oh, wait, let me see. I did miss some stuff in here, didn't I? Single equal word in TypeScript. Line 108. Yeah, because SurfCat, I know. Of course, you know, copy and pasting is our main tool as developers, right? I did it like a lot of stuff this morning, and I was like, I should have waited and done this on stream, but I guess it's good I didn't because we would have ran out of time. All right, any other questions before we sign off today? Sorry, my chat is over here. If I keep like going over here, that's how I see my chat. Now if Chromium-based Edge integrates it, it will be able to replace. Oh, Seth, okay, thank you. I'm glad. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you're excited to build something because I want to see some more cool stuff in Babylon. I want to see I want to go play games. Like I want there just to be like a library of cool games to go play on my headset. So there's definitely some out there, and there's like lots of client ones in the store. So like in the library where you actually download the client, but I want to see some more web-based games. Will you move to your channel after this? I have some other things that on my docket for today, so I'm not going to today, but if you follow my channel, and if you follow me on Twitter, I usually will tweet out when I'm gonna start building out more stuff on this and like what I'm gonna do. So if you follow me there on Twitter and follow me, and it's Cassie Breviu on Twitter as well as Twitch, then we can build up more stuff. And there you'll get to see me live code and break everything, rather than here I just kind of went over everything all the work that I've done already. But yeah, definitely not today, but I will be continuing to build out this game until it's to the point that we need. I might have to do some like 3D modeling streams as well, because now that I need a mesh with some skeleton and bones, I'm gonna have to figure that part out. So thank you so much for everyone for coming. I hope you learned something, and I hope you're excited about VR. Bye.